All right, guys. I know it's been a little bit since you've heard from me, but been super busy with my real job, as they call it, and then my side business. I'm an electrician, so I do some residential on the side. I've got contractor's license and all that jazz. But I don't know why, but it's been taking off a lot here lately. It's been good. Everything with me has been really good here lately. I mean, it's making it a lot easier to someday get my dream bike. So uh, my my side business is kind of my motorcycle fund, if you will. So it's been good, but I just kind of wanted to do a quick video today on what I've been up to and what's happened to me lately. I was staying up to date there for a while on my updates on this, and I know I talked a little bit about the Supermoto, but it's just kind of, I don't know. It's not a bad bike, but not much to talk about on a brand new bike that I'm never going to do anything to, other than I did put a set of, what are these, Metzeler Roadtecs on it. Way better than the, I can't remember what they are. IRC is the brand, which is like $50 a tire. Of course, Metzeler, those were like 160 a tire, but man, that thing handles good now. But that's really all I can say about the Supermoto. Mainly, got a few things I want to talk about today. Got some updates on the old bike here. Um, so I think I talked about how far I ride it every day. If I ride it to work or whatever, but it's like 52 or 54 miles one way. And a few weeks ago, I rode it to work, and traffic in the city was super bad that day. I don't know what was going on, and I can go city all the way home, or I can go interstate. Obviously, not a great interstate bike, so I'd never taken it on there. But where I live and where I'm coming from, I can go, 5 miles on the interstate and hit back roads. I can go about 15 miles, hit back roads, or I can go about 40 and hit back roads from there. So I thought, well, I'll go the 5 mile way and turn off from there and see how it does. And at 5 miles, I was like, man, this thing's doing great. Heck with it. I'll take the 15 miles and see how it does. And it's running 70 like a champ. It was happy. I was happy. Cruising right along. And I was getting ready to get off interstate. It made the whole jaunt and decided, like we all do, wonder how fast this thing goes. Haven't tried before. So I rung it out to somewhere in the 100 to 110 mile per hour range. It's a stock 1978 Speedo that I've kind of trimmed down the gauge cluster on. And around 55, it kind of starts to teeter, plus or minus, 3 or 4 mile per hour of what you're actually doing. So I'm calling it 105 because it was bouncing between 100 and 110. I'm assuming it was probably somewhere in the middle there. But, bike did it like a champ. I get off interstate, make it all the way home. And I live on a pretty steep hill. And when I come down the hill to my driveway, I always shut the bike off, let it start getting air on the fins, trying to cool the cylinders down. And when I pull it in, I put a fan on it, let it blow for, an hour or so to help cool it down. When I shut it off coming down my hill, I hear my typical, sprocket noise and chain noise kind of rattling, wheels rolling as they do. And I hear another noise. And I'm like kind of tipping my head back, trying to figure out if it's front end, rear end, where it's coming from. Couldn't really find it, but I could tell it was, it was going with wheel speed. And I get off the bike, and when I do, I just bump the back fender, and it slaps up against the struts here. I was like, okay, the bolt fell out again. They've done that I don't know how many times. No big deal. So I pulled in the garage. Both bolts had fell out. These are 3/8 bolts that are, you can see it's pretty tight there between the tire and the fender. It's 3/4 of an inch from the tire to the inside of the fender. So I got to have a 3/8 bolt that's 3/4 of an inch from the head to the end of the threads. So they're not very long. It's pretty easy for them to work out. So I'm assuming when I was doing my 105-mile jaunt like an idiot, those bolts had somehow came out through there, didn't jam up in my tire and bust my tire, thank goodness. And I don't know how the fender laying on my tire for another 20 plus miles probably didn't, either burn a hole through my tire, burn a hole through the fender, whatever the case. Probably just got really lucky there, but I've been on the fence about Loctiting the bolts that hold my fender on. the last few times they came off, and I haven't wanted to because I want to put a 6-inch wide flat fender on this thing this winter, but I guess I'll just have to like break out the torch when I go to take those bolts out now. But um, today I took it on another ride. Um, just kind of a, not even really a decompressed ride, really, so much as a, it's a nice evening. Going to be a nice sunset. We got a really nice mountain close to us. From where I'm at to where it is probably 20 minutes, but it's about 1,500 feet higher in elevation. So it's beautiful at sunset. So I ride up there and I'm on the way up, and every time I ride this thing, I'm checking stuff, seeing what's broke now, and lo and behold, the brake light solder. I'm assuming, I haven't opened it up yet, but I'm assuming the brake light solder has broke again because it was a $10 light off Amazon, and it's be the second time it's broke now. But that's all part of the deal with an old bike like that, so it's no big deal really. It's something I just got to tackle into again. But the biggest reason I wanted to make a video today, I haven't had any good topics lately. I didn't want to sound repetitive when I was doing them, but I think I touched on that I was wanting to trade the Supermoto in on one of my videos in the past. And today I got off work early and decided, you know what, heck with it. I'm going to go and test ride an Indian and the Harley, the competitors that I want. I like the Street Bobs, I like the Lowrider S, and I like the Indian Sport Chief, kind of the competitor to the Lowrider S. Where I live, our Indian and Harley dealer are within a stone's throw of each other, literally a couple hundred yards probably. So it's perfect to go up there and ride this one and ride that one back to back. It's great. So I stop at Indian first, walk in, I'm looking at the Sport Chief. Guy comes out and meets me, and kind of asks me, what do you have now? And I'm like, well, this and that. And he's like, well, you ever rode an Indian? No, never have. He's like, you want to? Sure. Heck yeah, I'd love to. So I go out, grab my helmet, take off, and I get maybe 200 yards out of their parking lot, and I get a cramp in my hip that just about crippled me. One of the ones you got to drop your foot and press away from it. And the only thing I can think is because that bike had mids on it, which are, I've talked about how close the pegs are on the XS before. These were probably 6 inches closer. I was right up there, knees right in my chest. I'm like 5'8". I'm not tall. So that bike is tight. So that was the first thing I didn't love. The guy had it in sport mode when I got on it. And as soon as I got on it, I went to give it a couple blips at the throttle, hear the exhaust note. And when I did, I hit the throttle, and by the time that my hand had relaxed, the bike had just started reacting to me blipping the throttle. So I didn't like the laggy throttle response either. I'm assuming it's because it's electronic throttle and I'm just used to cable throttles for the last few years. So that's the second thing I didn't care for. We get on interstate. The bike had a pile of torque. If I remember right, it's 679 pounds wet weight and 120 pound-feet of torque. That's substantial for a bike of that size. And it pulled like a train, man. It was really impressive. But being the Sport Chief, it's got that tiny little fairing on the front, probably an 8-inch windscreen, and I can see it's buffering back and forth real bad and shaking. So I just took my hands off the handlebars enough to kind of almost free float it, and I can feel them hitting me in the palms. They're bouncing back and forth so hard. And I was like, well, that would be kind of sucky on a long ride, But one of them things, you just get used to it. I'm used to the vibrations of this one now, even though it vibrates down low, not up high, whereas that Sport Chief was all in my hands. It was all coming through the forks, which was odd. I don't know if the motor's not rubber mounted up top and it is down low, or is this one's rigid mounted all the way. I'm not real sure. But that was the third thing didn't care for. So we get off interstate after probably a 2 or 3 mile trip on it. And I'm not running this bike hard at all. It's not mine. I've got this got the salesman right in front of me, so I'm not trying to beat it to death, of course. And I just barely tip it in to get off interstate, and the peg drags. I'm like, oh my goodness, man. How are they calling this bike a sport? when you can't even bury it in the turns. You know, maybe I'm thinking of like my old CBR 600. I'm thinking of that. I don't know why I was expecting anything near that, which really I wasn't, but I was expecting far more than what it was as far as lean angle. Um, so we go out a couple of little twisties. It's like a 35-mile-an-hour zone, nothing crazy, just kind of leaning into it, getting a feel for it. And I will say it has Fox piggyback shocks in the rear, KYB fully adjustable, inverted front suspension, dual Brembos up front, all the works. Braking was phenomenal. Suspension was like unreal, man. That thing has a real good suspension on it, but engine, suspension, and brakes was the only things I liked. Everything else I was far from pleased with. Took my hands off the handlebars again on a straight just after all them twisties at like the 35-mile-an-hour zone. And the gauge on that thing is mounted, it'd be like kind of right there between the triple clamp and, or the triple tree rather. And so I've got a good point of reference for me to center of the tank to the center of the gauge. And this thing's head shaking like an inch each way. I would say if I'd have been doing 55, it would have turned into a death wobble. I don't know why it did that. I didn't have time to stop and check and see if maybe it was just the head on it was loose. I don't know. I've not seen that on any other YouTube videos I've watched because I'm big on watching YouTube reviews on all the big guys. Chase on two wheels, for example, and I didn't see him have that same issue. So maybe it was just that one I rode had been poorly assembled. I'm not sure, but it was very disheartening that that bike was as, I don't want to even call it bad, but for a bike that's 20,500 on the floor, probably 22, 23 out the door, a bike that's that unpleasing to me is like, it was very heartbreaking because I guess I had kind of cracked that bike up to be like a superhero in essence of it's going to bring me all sorts of joy. It's going to be everything I've ever wanted and more, and it just wasn't, man. Um, Kind of like meeting your idol and then finding out they're not what you thought. That's honestly how I felt. I was that unhappy about it. Could not wait to get off that bike, which is odd, to even say that I felt that way. But I ran out of time. Didn't end up getting a test ride the lowrider or the street bob. But I'm really hoping to do that soon, and hoping that I don't have the same feelings about the Harleys as I do that Indian. But you talk to all the Harley guys, and they say, "Oh, don't ride an Indian because if you do, you're gonna have to have one." And I was like, "Man, I rode Harleys and I like those. Indians got to be it." And I just did not share that same opinion. And maybe it was, like I said, maybe it was just that one I rode. Maybe it was that model. Maybe it was too high of expectations. Maybe it was the road we were on. I'm not sure. I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, but from what I felt, what I seen, and how unimpressed I was, I can't help but think it was just maybe all the sport chiefs are like that. I don't know. I'd like to hear from some of you guys. Maybe if you have a sport chief, please tell me that that one was just something was wrong with it. I would feel much better about that. I want to go back to and ride the Scout 101. I'd like to test ride an FTR, and I'd like to test ride one of the regular Chiefs. Be it a Dark Horse or a Bobber or whatever the case, just one without that front fairing, and see if maybe that was where all the head shake and all that was coming from. But if you guys have any kind of suggestions on bikes that maybe I ought to look into as well. Maybe you're kind of picking up my taste here, what I'm hinting at. I want a bike that's looks and sounds and feels like the XS here, but has all the new stuff, the traction control and ABS and dual disc brakes and Brembos, all the stuff. Because I like riding bikes hard, but I really can't ride this thing hard and not die. So, I I know I said it in the last video. I need to get a GoPro and start recording my rides on these two, so you guys can kind of get a feel for how I ride. But I mean, my Metzlers now on the Supermoto have probably 1,000 miles on them, and My IRCs, the stock tires, I wasn't able to get rid of the chicken strip, but on those ones, it's completely gone. I've actually almost had a whoopsie daisy on the left hand side of the bike a couple weeks after I got it. Leaned too far, I could feel I was at the max lean angle on the tire. Just kind of had that. It was at that point. It was sticking point, and I gave it just a little bit more, and I felt it dip. I actually threw my leg down, probably about shattered my knee out of stupidity, but old dirt bike racing stuff, I guess. But yeah, guys, I'm sorry I haven't posted a video in a while. I hope I didn't lose any of you viewers that I developed in that short amount of time. I mean, I was posting videos pretty consistently, and I was getting a lot of hits. You guys really made me feel like maybe there's actually a desire for my two undesirable machines here. My lackluster, I don't know, kind of excitement and giddy about them. I don't like to be one of those guys that like, oh, this is my bike and it's the best bike ever. It's everybody's bike's great. I work with a guy that's got a Honda Sabre, and me and him, we're always cracking jokes about hog cranking and brother and all the stuff. But that's what it's all about. It's just having fun. I've had as much fun on a Ninja 250 as I've had on a road glide. So it's not about the bike so much as it is the enjoyment of riding. And something that was really good for me today was learning that it's not about the power. I've been looking at bikes like, oh, I got to have something that's a 107 plus, at least. And then I rode that 116 cubic inch Sport Chief today, and I was like, that the power's not doing it. This thing doesn't have but probably 50 horsepower, and it's more fun than the Chief has ever dreamed of being. So it's keep that in mind, guys. It's not about the power. If you don't feel it with the bike, it doesn't matter. I could go out and ride a BMW S1000 double R. Probably not going to like it as much as I would the Supermoto. And it's got 17 horsepower to the wheel. So I don't know, guys. I try and give honest opinions and my thoughts on kind of my way of thinking on motorcycles, and try and do these as like basic garage views as if you're here talking with me, and try and have a down to earth conversation about it, and I'm not trying to upsell anything. I'm not trying to talk guys into, oh, you got to buy the XS650. It's better than a shovel head all day long. I don't believe that at all. If anybody has a shovel head they want to trade me, I'd be more than happy to do it, actually. But that's besides the point. Guys, I appreciate you stopping by again and checking out my video. And, hopefully if I can get some traction on this one again, see that people are still around looking for me or watching my stuff, I'll post some more stuff, and maybe someday soon get a GoPro and start recording my junk rolling down the road with me on it. So thanks for stopping by again, guys, and have a good evening.